And okay, hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Typical Skeptic podcast. I got my good friend Brad with me from Shamanitas. He's back for part two on a deep dive into Amanita Muscaria. And then we're going to get into the myths, the mythology, the Christmas, how it ties into Christmas, like what we're going through now with Three Eye Atlas. And like in the first half of the show, which is YouTube safe, we'll explore the mythological origins of Amanita, ancient civilizations tied to the mushroom, shamanism, Christmas traditions, Norse lore, all that stuff, and then how symbolism survived through mystery schools and esoteric traditions. Then we'll go over to Rumble, where we'll talk about his new product, which is called Druid's Delight, which we're not allowed to talk about on YouTube. But I mean, you guys get the picture of where we're going with that. So, and a little bit more about my guest. Brad Beyer is the founder of Shamanitas.org, known for his pioneering work with entheogenic microdosing sprays and spiritual mushroom alchemy. His research blends mycology, consciousness studies, ancient history, and shamanic lineage knowledge, making him one of the leading modern voices in the Amanita Renaissance. And I'd like to give him a big warm welcome back to the show. Brad, thanks so much for coming back on, man. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me back. It's going to be fun to follow up on where we left off last time.
I agree. Last show was really good. I thought it was a really good one,
Yeah, and I had some epiphanies while we're doing the show. I got really excited thinking about this incoming object, the three eye atlas, the third eye atlas. And subsequently, I hadn't heard of anyone talking about how this is coming in to be the Star of the East, or the Magi, the biblical Star of Bethlehem, bringing in Christ consciousness and creating a Kundalini awakening in a bunch of people. And subsequently, I found a couple other people talking like that. It's kind of interesting how the 100th monkey works. This spread of these ideas, right?
Yeah.
And so I looked at I don't know, some pseudoscientific examination of what's happening with this incoming object. Seen some recent pictures, and it kind of looks the same. There's really no tail, a little bit of a tail on it. Kind of, I guess it's anomalous in that it's pointing at the sun. And the most anomalous thing is they're saying it's got non-gravitic acceleration, which means it's getting faster and faster in its velocity, but it's not caused by a slingshot effect around objects or gravitational pull or anything. So that made me think of the title I wanted to use today. Like I said, hey, it's because we talked about how it's tied to the third eye and Kundalini awakening, and that's inspired by the Amanita mushroom back with the Vedic cultures, and cultures all around the world, the Gnostics pointing to the Jesus and the mushroom, and that being a Christ meaning anointed by the oil, the soma oil in the cerebrospinal column, and all those sorts of things. So I thought it'd be fun to say, hey, this is being pulled by Santa and his reindeer, pulling it into position. His reindeer is Reign-Dear, the precious crown chakra idea. So yeah, I wanted to build upon those ideas we were introducing last show, and I happened to look into, we all know now that Santa and his red and white bringing presents is a representation of the Amanita, an anthropomorphic idea. He's dressed as a shaman, let's say, but I was looking into more of his, just starting with his outfit, and he's also wearing black boots, and everything about this story is symbolic and has some kind of a meaning. The black boots, you ever heard about the black boots part of
No, that's
his
interesting.
costume? Yeah, so it turns out that the black boots represent like a grounding in a darkness coming out of the prima materia of the alchemists. It's all nods to early alchemy principles, and based on the three colors, the black, the white, and the red. And the black boots are referred to as Negredo from from the Latin blackness or darkness, and it means that out of the prima materia, the chaos and the ether and the substance from which all matter becomes, you first start with a nigredo, which is putrefaction, decomposition. Some people refer it to in terms of like, and back to the alchemical principles. We touched upon this last week about how the alchemists were about not turning physical lead into gold, but transmutation of your mental state, consciousness, right? Developing, the magnum opus, the great work, the perfected man, the squaring of the circle, the Vitruvian man. And so it's about, the dark night of the soul. And you know that is about, kind of a destruction of everything you thought you knew about the world, and ultimately yourself and your ego and your connection to, higher self, and kind of learning about what that is, kind of throwing out all these ideas that were programmed into you from childhood onward, and the existential crisis. And then we see Jung, who was a big student of alchemy. Of course, he was an alchemist, transmutation of mental states, and he referred to it as doing your shadow work, darkness, right? And so we also see the same kind of idea in Shakespearean works. We get into a lot of that in Nigredo, dark night of the soul ideas there. So we kind of see it around the popular culture too. And then we move into the white part of his outfit, and that's known in alchemy as albedo, the whiteness or the washing away of impurities. That could be considered to be something like a baptismal rebirth, that you need to be born again. You first need to be baptized and purify the body and the mind, and put yourself in a position to receive these signals and these energies and these light frequencies from the universe. And then ultimately, and that whiteness, of course, translates to the body, the fruit body of the stem of the Amanita. And then you've got rubedo, the red, and in alchemy that is known as rubedo, redness, magnum opus, completion, perfection of the philosopher's stone. So now we can tie these alchemical ideas that go way back to 16th, 15th century to the Santa character, and we then see that he is representation of the Christ consciousness as well. Of course, coming around the same time of year as the Christian festivities, right? And then we see the sleigh is his ascension vehicle. We talked about the feathered serpent last time, and the serpent is the Kundalini serpent, and then the feathers are an indication of your activation and your ability to rise above the material and soar with the power of divinity, right? And then that led me to discover, in the pop culture, we see other ascension vehicles. For example, first of all, I want to talk about, some other motifs. Like he's got his sack, right, of toys for the kid. And he's bringing things for the children, right? So that tells you that in order to receive the presents from the ascension vehicle, you need to accept them as a child. Like Matthew 8:13 tells us, you need to enter the kingdom of heaven, you need to do it as a child. And we've talked about before how that means you need to be in kind of a relaxed state of openness to what the universe has to provide, and that in a brain activity that would put you in the childlike theta brain state, or a meditative state where you can receive these ideas from the universe. And so he's bringing these gifts to a child, and they're packed in a bag, and he's on the sleigh. He's making one big circuit, and he's got every present he needs to have, and all the coal he's going to deliver to the bad kids, right, in this one bag. So, his bag represents the infinite potential and manifestation that comes from the all, from the universe. It's all there, one place. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then we've got
what I was
What?
going to say. What would his sleigh represent? Would that represent anything, or like?
Well,
That's a tough one. I don't know. I could look it up.
the sleigh is just the fact that it's levitated. It's above the material, and he can manifest whatever he needs to do, go wherever he needs to go. To me, it's just kind of
It's
symbolic.
like his magic carpet. It's like his magic carpet in a way, but like it's
sure. Or the back to the feathered serpent. It's Kundalini energy, just taking flight, wing, right?
Yeah.
But the metaphor
that's
is
really deep.
Yeah. So we've got the naughty and nice kids list, where the naughty kids get the coal, which again is kind of a nod to the Negredo idea, the primordial base object that can be ignited and start the process, but it's early in the process. You're not written off yet. Maybe next year you can get the present, and then of course the kids that are ready for presents are the ones that are ready to receive the ascension. Another alchemical idea, and then that led to other ascension idea vehicles in pop culture, like we see Mary Poppins and her flying umbrella, right? And she also has an interesting bag in that she can pull huge objects out of a bag that looks like it shouldn't be able to hold that object, right? There's not enough room in it. So it's kind of the same idea in that she's got this magical power and she can fly, and with the umbrella that's shaped like, of course, an Amanita, and then with the handle on the umbrella famously has a parrot, which is interesting in that a parrot represents kind of a material world, or like you go to a dinner party and you got one of these materialists, and they just blah blah blah, like talking points from the Matrix, and they've got nothing interesting to say, right? So that's kind of like your base nature on her umbrella handle, which is kind of interesting. And of course, we also have an ascension vehicle in Cinderella, where she has, the pumpkin carriage, and the pumpkin shaped like the Taurus field, and she, comes from her mundane, dismal existence to the ball, which is, again, a reference to a circle and the crown and the princess. So kind of got the same alchemical ideas, and these other stories too.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I love that. I love that we're breaking down the mythology of the Santa, and it does tie into Three Eye Atlas, right? It's interesting that Three Eye Atlas is coming through at this time. It could be representative of that, it seems like Three Eye, and what's some interesting, Brad, is how much controversy Three Eye Atlas has sparked up. Like even Kim Kardashian was talking about Three Eye Atlas.
Oh, what'd she say? What was she saying about it?
Supposedly she had some info from that. She was probing NASA. You know what I mean? It's probably all bullshit because she's bullshit, and so is NASA. But I mean, I think the thing is that that it's sent to wake people up. You know what I mean? People that aren't usually thinking outside the box, maybe to get them thinking about bigger things, the bigger questions in life. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, and I think it's not going to be like, oh, look, and it's going to things are going to ideas are going to come into people, and we talked about these energies, and some people I think will have a Kundalini activation, because to me it does represent the return of the Star of the East, this time of year, with the Christ child being born into the material, and a nod to all these this idea of ascension and being anointed, and I think it's going to surprise a lot of people. And again, we know it's coming on, and I confirmed it. It's coming on the 19th. Well, it's going to be visible on the 19th, and there's going to be no competitor in terms of like a brighter object in the sky. The moon is in a new moon, so it's going to be real obvious, and I think it's going to inspire a lot of people to kind of be able to connect some pieces too, in terms of like the mythologies and the narratives and doctrines they've been told, and it'll help them see, like, in a symbolic way, there's something much bigger going on here than what they thought. I think so. I think that's what's happening.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. You had other stuff you wanted to go over. Well, let me see here. I'll go over my notes, see what we have here. What about Amanita schools, like Amanita symbols appearing in like the Norse, Siberian, Celtic, and Christian traditions? Like, did you talk about that at all? Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about that. We see it in the Christian narrative. We see the idea of the sacrament, where Jesus says, here's my blood, and take, eat, this is my body. And we know that in the Vedic text, the Amanita is the soma, and the Greek word for body is soma. So in the original Greek, which is where we get the New Testament and Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, etc., we see Jesus saying, take, eat, this is my body. Well, he would be saying, take, eat, this is my soma, right? So there's a direct correlation in the Greek to Jesus being the soma. And then we see in the Dead Sea Scrolls, we've got John Allegro, the Dead Sea Scroll scholar, publishing a book in 1970, Sacred Mushroom and the Cross, where he points out that he has decoded the Gnostic text and determined that their Jesus is the Amanita mushroom. And we see it throughout the Mesoamerican cultures, the Maya and the Aztecs, where we've seen definitely motifs with them, with like Amanita coming out of their forehead, and they definitely worked with it down there. And they've got their mythologies about the feathered serpent and the Kundalini awakening. And then we talked about how we also see that feathered serpent and third eye motif in Egypt. We see it on the King Tut's death mask, where you see him with basically the way his eyes are done. It's like the eyes of Horus and Ra. Those are references to the limbic system and the pineal gland and the pituitary gland and the mechanics within the body necessary for this Kundalini awakening. And then he's got a serpent, the Kundalini serpent coming out of his forehead with the feathered vulture too, which is also a reference to like the phoenix and rebirth and rising. And Wajet is the name of this entity. And then we also see on the death mask these the colors gold and blue. And I've talked about this before in a show about the Kundalini activation I had in 2016, where I had done a big dose of RSO in my lab, kind of accidentally, and ended up getting into a real relaxed state, just lying down, kind of resting. And then I had these energies going up and down my spine. And then I got into the shower, and something about, I think, the warm water coming down like a baptism caused my third eye to open, and I had gold and blue streams of light coming in. And I didn't realize until just a month ago, this happened 9 years ago now. And a month ago, I saw a little thing about the King Tut motif and how it represents Kundalini. I'm like, oh man, there's the gold and the blue. It's the same. I've been trying to figure out what the gold and blue meant for a long time, and trying to find out if anybody else ever had the same experience as I have. And I see that King Tut has the same motif in the tomb that I had. So somebody in history had the same golden blue incoming light rays that I had, and it was
I can tell you, I didn't have blue, but I had gold. Like, what happened was, I don't know if I ever told you this story, but this is the true story to the best of my knowledge of what happened to me. So one night I was sitting here at my desk. I took shrooms, and like nothing was happening. Like I took a decent amount too, and I thought like
The
something
other
was going to
ones.
happen. Yeah,
Hmm.
the
Yeah.
psilocybin, and I laid down and I think I can talk about this on YouTube. I don't know. I laid down
You
and
already
like
did.
what? Yeah, I'm not condoning any drug use, by the way, anybody.
Oh
So
no, we would
for
never
YouTube
touch that one.
purposes, yeah. But so I laid down, and then what I felt was, how, like escalators or conveyor belts, like it felt like a conveyor belt was turning on in my back, and like it felt like
Ah.
energy was going up my back, and like
Mm.
in my mind, I started seeing the coiled like snake, like the I saw the caduceus, like the
Oh
sign
yeah.
of the caduceus, and then
Hmm.
all of a sudden energy started coming out of my chest, like went into my pineal gland. And it was gold, like you said, and then it exploded out my crown, and it was like this amazing experience, and I was like seeing like energy everywhere, and then it just stopped, and then I just like
Mm.
I felt, and I don't know, it was, but
Amazing.
it felt, what's that?
That's amazing.
It
Wow.
was it was weird.
You hadn't
It was
told me that
definitely weird.
before.
It was definitely strange. Yeah, it was like, and then I did DMT like every day one time for like a whole month. Like
Mm.
someone sent me a DMT cartridge, and like I or a pen and stuff, and like I experimented for sure, but like it was really weird. Like, I never went like really deep, you know what I mean? I saw some like weird entities that reminded me of like jokers off of playing cards, but more so what I saw was like the holographic. Every time like I'd be coming off the DMT, like everything on my desk would look holographic, which made me go back to Michael Talbot's book, The Holographic Universe. And it
Mm.
made me think that like we're in some kind of biological simulation. It seems like that, like we're in some kind of, I don't know, that's what it seems like, because whatever they do, they make it seem like everything's very real. But from what we're told, or if you do research, it seems like everything could be like holographic to a certain degree, which is really strange. I don't know. What do you think? I kind of went off track there.
Yeah. Right from Kundalini to simulation. Yeah, this is certainly, well, we know from the Hermetic principles that this is all just an experience in the mind of the all. It's a dream. It's a dream. So, in whatever technological spin you want to put on it, like it's a dream, it's a simulation, it's a simulator. It's, to me, it's some kind of it's a flight simulator. We're here to learn how to fly metaphorically, spiritually, and you look at the energetic signatures here. We've got logos, and we've got the way, the Tao, the Tao of the Chinese philosophies, the polarity of this existence, and the Japanese word dojo, which we know is where you go to learn martial arts and to hone your skills. That's translates to the place of the way. So it pretty much tells us that the simulation is a dojo. We're here in a dojo, just like Neo in the dojo with Morpheus. You think that's area breathing, working on his skill set so that he can become the one, which is exactly what we're talking about. It's all about alchemy and Gnosticism. All
Why,
these stories.
yeah. Why do you think? I think we can talk about this on YouTube. Why do you think Amanita has been demonized so much?
Because, well, it's part of the protocol of the discipline. Like you go to learn jujitsu, the masters walk you through a process where you're like rising in belts and abilities, right? And they know the path that you need to take, right? Because it's been laid out. So the people that run the world, we know they are involved with their cultures and subcultures that are based on initiate systems, right? We've got Freemasons, the 33rd degree. They were the ones that went to the moon, and planted their Masonic flag, and they had their Masonic aprons, and they know these alchemical principles, and so they have an initiation system. That's where we get this idea of getting the 3rd degree, right? You put through your paces, and then they test you to see if you're right for the organization, if you're ready for an initiation, and then going through the other degrees and evolving and ascending. So those of us that aren't in these secret societies, we're born into, our culture is literally a secret society. Like you look at like the people that come to participate with your shows and talk about these topics, we're in the vast minority, right? So we're we're in a secret society, but not formalized, you know. So they're walking us through it by giving us these things in the culture, right? Like giving us, you know, these fake diseases and lying about how the body really works. And Amanita is part of this initiation, and it's all about learning how to not be in fear, you know. So the motif is keep Amanita legal, but make people afraid of it. Don't let them talk about it on YouTube, which I don't really get that exactly. At least let us talk about it, and you know, in a realistic way. But that's part of the initiation too, for some reason. Like we need to figure out a better way to communicate it off of these large social platforms. But it's hidden because just like the way, you know, our whole lives, you know, you never heard anybody say Jesus on TV, right? They were yanked as soon as possible, right? You can talk about Satan all day long. You can't talk about Jesus. And, you know, this mushroom being equated with Jesus and, you know, anointing and like raising Kundalini. It's like, it's meant to be a difficult path to get there, you know? And so they want us to be afraid of it. They want us, you know, everything they do is keep us in fear, like the C19 psychological operation, like, be afraid, you know, be part of our biological experiment, and you need to reject fear. We're here to learn how to reject fear and build our courageousness. You know, again, back to the dojo idea. The more you build your skills, the more courageous you're going to be. And then at some point, you know, once you have your inspirations from, you know, some of these tools or just some of these things that happen, or your dark night of the soul, your realization that I'm bigger than this, or this isn't me. I've got a higher self. You know, part of me exists outside of this construct. You know, once you get there and you less and less fear death and all those sorts of things, and you can embrace these things. And like I tried to have somebody the other day try one of my sprays, and they said, oh, that mushroom's toxic, right? Like you look at the foraging guide, it's going to tell you it's toxic, but that's just because you know, they want us to be afraid of it. You know, if you do huge amounts of the raw mushroom, you can run into some problems like ataxia and stumbling and, you know, kind of a seizure-like kind of activity. But, you know, properly prepared in smaller doses, you're fine. It's a medicine, you know.
It's
So
a
they want us to be,
microdose.
they want us to be afraid of it, you know. And it's interesting that you can talk about psilocybin more on these platforms than Amanita, and that one's illegal. So, you know, it's a really interesting trick they're pulling on us. But
yeah. Maybe we should go to Rumble. Maybe we should go to Rumble now, since we got an audience, and then we can talk about everything
okay,
more
whatever you
open.
think. All right,
Let's but we're good. I mean, this is good stuff, though. I mean, like, okay, guys, come over to Rumble. We're going over to Rumble now, where we can talk more freely, and you know, we'll continue this conversation over there. I just want to give it a couple minutes for Jason to get the stream out. Thanks, Jason, for sharing it. And yeah, everybody come over there. You know, it doesn't hurt. It's just a different link. You know, and all right, we're